So guys, once again, welcome to 737 Aviation. Welcome to the next episode of our type rating. As promised, we're going to talk about the QRH, so Quick Reference Handbook. One of the most important documents regarding especially non-normal situations on Boeing 737, but as we're going to learn, some certain normal things might be found in the QRH as well. So first of all, what does the QRH stand for? Quick Reference Handbook, as you can see here. This is the first page. Let's go to the very first. That's the cover of the QRH. Quick Reference Handbook. The Quick Reference Handbook is produced for every single commercial airliner, including the 737, of course, as well. The book is quite a big size book. It has about 500 pages at least-ish, depending on the operator. Some operators might add some checklists, making the QRH even larger. But we're gonna show the QRH, physical QRH, in a second. In the meantime, we're gonna work on the PDF copy of it. So that's the PDF, and from the legal perspective, we're required to have at least a copy for pilot. So every pilot should have one copy, and there should be one printed copy inside the flight deck, at least in the European countries, in the EASA countries. I don't know about the US and the other CAAs, but in Europe we should have one printed copy of the QRH, which normally is located in the first officer side pocket, just below the trim wheel. Should be somewhere here, and it usually occupies whole of this compartment. Some operators still do have two sides, but it's quite heavy and it needs a lot of maintenance. If we get new pages done, then we will have more pages, and I think I haven't shown you the compartment. So the QRH is usually located in this pocket, just below the trim wheel, or sometimes on both sides, and it usually occupies all this space. The book itself is a quick change book, so you will see that it's easy to open, easy to change pages, but we're gonna move to that later on. And the QRH consists of quite many sections, but that's the cover. The book itself doesn't have a cover. The cover is already something, and it's Quick Action Index. On this page we have all the bold checklists, so all the quick action checklists, the ones that will need the pilots to react quickly. For instance, like engine fires, engine overheats, rapid depressurization, etc., etc. Some of them might include memory items, which we're going to talk about after all. Some of them not, but all of them need to have some quick action to be done. Despite the name quick action, we always remember that we fly the airplane first. So whatever happens, we always have to fly the airplanes first. First of all, we maintain the correct path, correct pitch, everything, and then we move to the checklist. Of course, it doesn't make any sense to do engine overheat checklists while crashing into the train. So fly the airplane first, maintain the positive control of the airplane, then move to the checklist. So that's the general flow. First of all, we always fly the airplane. As we're in the flight deck, I will just tell you that in this video we are in engines running configuration. It would be the same configuration as we are in flight in somewhere cruising or but we are not configured for takeoff or nothing else. And the QRH applies to the airplanes in flight. So if we are on stand with parking brake set, engines off, then we're not going to refer to the QRH. We are going to refer to MEL, so minimum equipment list, or just call the company and ask, listen, I have this and this. what should I do in this situation. And according to the description, airplane in flight is an airplane that release the parking brake in order to commence flight. So after pushback, after engine starts, we press master caution. There is something we do refer to QRH. Before that, we go to MEL, or we just call the company and ask for further instructions. That should be nice and easy, at least. Of course, sometimes we need some common sense, and if we do have, I don't know, standby power off or something, and we know it's not gonna work, or some electric pumps or hydraulic pumps doesn't work, instead of just picking up QRH for hours, we would check if we're able to taxi and then taxi back to the stand and decide what to do. But that's not the case today. So going back to the checklists, quick action index per first page. We need to know the names of this checklist at least. We should be familiar with. So good advice is to download the QRH and just go through that. Check what checklist we have, how does it look like, and PDF version is nicely accessible on the internet. It's nice and easy to find, so you shouldn't have any bigger problems with that. So that's the cover, quick action index. Some, of course, legal disclaimers, and then we go to light. The second chapter is lights. I will close that one so you can see how does it look like on this side as well. So the second part is lights. This part will consist of all checklists that have associated light to it. So any light that is red or amber in the flight deck, any single of these lights will have associated checklist to it. Doesn't mean it's important or not, like for instance forward entry door or low pressure or fuel pump or something. Every single of these lights is going to have associated checklist in it. So again, I haven't switched it, so let's go like this. So forward entry down here, or low pressure, or any single light that is in the flight deck itself, regardless if it's upper overhead panel or pedestal, it's going to have associated checklist with it. That's the easy part. So if we have any checklist, any light, we just read what is written on the checklist, like bleed trip off. We go to the checklist, scroll down, and we will find the light bleed trip off. Bleed trip off. So that's nice and easy. That's the easiest part of the QRH. So moving along, we have all the checklists we have here. Let's go to the full screen back again. Maybe I won't forget to switch it back. So as we have all the uninitiated lights checklist, then we go to the end, and as I told you, every single light has the checklist in it. Next page is uninitiated, if I pronounced it correctly. Sorry guys, if you're native. Those ones are a bit more tricky, because in those checklists we won't get any information about it. So as again, you can see that lights, if the checklist has lights associated to it, the checklist will be written in the capital letters. That's important, capital letters. And if it's bold for some reason, it's gonna be quick action. Actually, I don't have any bold checklist here, and then in the light section. So capital letters are always having light with it, and if it's bold, it's on the quick action index on the front page. As you see, that's not capital letters. Okay, ACARS is, but it's the name of the systems. and some of them are bold, some of them are even bigger because there are, let's say, more quick action than the other ones. The tricky part about the uninitiated checklist is that we do have to know the specific name of the checklist. For instance, we lose the thrust on both engines, we lose both engines. For some reason the engines stop. Of course we're gonna have some light, of course we're gonna have those ones plus drives and everything else, but the highest priority is that we have lost the engines. But as you see, there is no specific checklist saying both engine failure. So we have two choices. We can, of course, we should know which checklist to call. Loss of thrust on both engines. That's the name of the checklist. So some checklists are a little bit more tricky than the other ones, so we have to know the names. The first, of course, that's the first way, but if we are getting stressed, a high workload situation, and we forget the name of the checklist, we can always go to the correct chapter, non-normal checklist, and I know that's gonna be engines, so I go to engines APU, and then I find it on the list associated to that particular chapter. Talking about chapters, as you see on some checklists, on all checklists, we have 7.1, 10.1, 2.1, 7.6, etc., etc. So the first one always stands for the chapter. We have same chapters as in the flight crew operating manual from 0 to 15. And they are the same systems, so system 7 will be always engines, 8 fire protection, etc., etc. And dot 1, it's always the number of the checklist, so that's gonna be in engine section, it will be first checklist in engines. Same engine limit surge or stall 7.2, the second checklist will be engine limit surge or stall. Okay. We got off track a little, but let's go back to my favorite word, so uninitiated index. So we have to know the names of the checklist. That's the tricky part. Fuel leak engine, landing gear lever will not move up after takeoff, etc., etc. So my good advice is to download the PDF and go through every single particular checklist, just to know the name and just to know what's going to happen in that checklist. Of course, you don't have to memorize them, you have to memorize only the member items. And it's only a few, I think it's 10 or 12 checklists that have member items, and usually, like in, for instance, APU flyer, that's only 2 items. So, of course, if you're starting your type rating or you're going for the simulators or you go flying, if you go out flying, you always have to know your memory items. That's the basic point to know. The rest is the QRH, but the memory items have to be remembered. So as we talked, they're going all the way down, and the next part is alphabetical. And here we have all checklists, both with the light or without the light. As you see, some are capital letters, so we know that the light is there. Some are not capital letters, some are bold, so we know that quick action, etc., etc., A to Z, nice and easy. This one is quite straightforward, so you have at least 3 ways to find the correct checklist. So we can scroll through that one. And what is quite surprising for some people, we're going to go into next section, which is normal checklists. All the normal checklists are both. So first of all, the main checklist we're using is this printed checklist on the glare shield, plus the yoke checklist. And here on the printed we have as well those checklists. So before takeoff, after takeoff, descent, approach, landing. So those are in-flight checklists. And in here we have all checklists, ground and in-flight. Additionally, we have those checklists as well printed in the QRH. So legally we have to have one copy. Same happened to me once I was quite a young first officer. We did the shutdown checklist and I managed to show the normal checklist, which is A4 paper, instead of putting that into the bracket here. I managed to put it just under the glare sheet inside, so we couldn't depart legally unless we have printed copy in the QRH, which we obviously had. So sometimes you might need as well to use the normal checklists out of the QRH. Oh, it's tea time. So go to normal checklist. They are exactly the same as the glare shield checklist. As you see, we do have some numbers here, and we have probe heat, which is written twice. That's the tabulation number. So every airplane will have its tabulation number depending on what kind of type of equipment it has. So we will know the tabulation number from the airplane documents or company documents, or quite often it's going to be written somewhere here, or maybe some sticker here, or something below the cell code. Like here, you might have a tabulation number here, and actually YGR23, I guess the author of the paint meant that's going to be a tabulation number for this particular airplane. So we should know our tabulation number. Usually in the QRH we don't have so many. Usually QRHs are made for specific plane, but we might have some. You see the difference here is probe heat auto, and in this tabulation number probe heat is off. And here you have, in fact, in this one we have probe heat off. Sometimes you might have auto, depending on what the first customer ordered. It's gonna be same for non-normal checklist, so you have to remember, you have to know your tabulation number. Moving forward, we're gonna have non-normal checklist, chapter non-normal checklist, section 0, miscellaneous, and you have table of contents. We have 2 checklists in here. As I told you, we're gonna have 15 chapters, and those chapters on the right side, actually sections, and here you have what is included in this particular section. I think, let's go to flight controls. Flight controls has quite many checklists, and that's quite a big chapter. It has 44 pages. So chapter 9 checklist, elevator tap vibration is 9.6, so it's going to be 6th page of this chapter. Talking about how to find the correct checklist, I'm going to give you some examples, and we're going to go through some checklists, how to do the normal checklist, but we usually will speak about it in specific episodes about specific checklists. We're gonna talk about some simple examples today. Let's go to here. I'm gonna show you the airplane. Let's find something pneumatic. For instance, we're gonna have bleed duct leak active, yes. PNDG simulates quite nicely failures. We have master caution, and pilot monitoring is saying always master caution, then finding what's associated with that. Master caution, air conditioning, wing body overheat. Pilot flying says wing body overheat, non-normal checklist by ATC. So pilot, non-flying and monitoring will move to the QRH and try to find a checklist which is associated for that. This one is easy because we do have the light, and since we have a light, you know, that's not that difficult. We can go to lights, so the first index after quick action, scroll to W, and we find the wing body overheat, 220 or 226. I suppose that's for two different tabulation numbers, which I don't know which one is the one we have, so we'll do let's say 220. That's the first way. The second way, if you know that's the air systems, you can just jump in straight to air systems. In the physical copy, you have nice tab numbers here on the right side, which I'm gonna show you, and just go to a checklist from the list. We know it's 220, or if you don't know, you can go to air systems and find it, especially if it's not enunciated, and you don't know the name of the checklist, how to call it out. For some reason the hyperlinks doesn't work. Usually if I do it on my company iPad, it would just jump straight to the checklist, which is making life way easier than, of course, scrolling or using the paper copy. Wing body overheat. So wing body overheat, how do we do the normal checklist? If there is a light which is associated to that, we're always going to have this light shown here. And pilot mention go, wing body overheat non-normal checklist. Condition, an overheat from a bleed duct leak occurs. Objective, to isolate bleed duct leak. We always read what is great. We don't just say, oh, condition objective, or sometimes it might be quite long, but we have to read that through. Isolation valve switch, close. So let's go back to plane, isolation valve switch, close. Choose one, right wing body overheat light illuminated or left wing body overheat light illuminated. We always read both options before we decide. Or more options if we have more options. I think this one has more options. Yes, this one has 3 options even. So choose one, both wing body overheat lights illuminated, only right, only left wing body overheat light are illuminated. At this point, we both have to agree. So both pilots have to agree, okay, it's only left. Yes, only left body, wing body overheat light illuminated, go to step 8. And step 8, left pack switch off. Off. It's my bad. This causes the operating pack to regulate to high flow in flight with flaps up. We read these notes as well, we don't just read steps. Bleed 1 air switch off. Off. And that's read and do. Bleed 1 air switch off. 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 And we confirm. So read, do, confirm. Bleed air switch off. Click, off. Wing anti-air switch off. Off. This prevents possible asymmetrical ice buildup on the wings. Avoid icing condition where the wing anti-ice is needed. Choose one. Wing body overheat light extinguishes. Wing body overheat light stays illuminated. It extinguished. And we have these 4 squares, meaning end of checklist, or wing body overheat, end of checklist. So we always read end of checklist, so the other guys knows that we have finished the checklist. This one was nice and easy. Let's go through some other example. Active no, let's cancel that one. Let's go back to the normal. Auto. Are you seeing the airplane? Yes, you do see the airplane. Nice. The other one, I want to show you something that's unenunciated. I did it in my Polish typewriting as well. So let's go to engines. That's nice and good Example, because engines usually don't cause the master caution unless it's overheat. Setup, aircraft failures, engine programmed. Engine 2 vibration. Yes. So there is no indication at all. The only thing is that you eventually, if the vibration is rising, you're eventually gonna feel it. And I will open the tab. Once the vibration will go above 1, let's add some thrust. Once vibration goes above 1, we might hear that, we might feel that, not hear that, but actually you can feel the little shaking of the airplane. So in this scenario, the PMDG is gonna rise continuously up to something, but it might be real life, it might be just rapid because something torn off of the blade or something, I don't know, or you had a bird strike, you haven't noticed. So once we exceed 4, the lower DU will pop open, so we're gonna see that one, and vibration will be above 4. Boeing says that vibration above 4 means that you're gonna have to read the normal checklist. So we have vibration above 4, let's assume. And we're going back to the checklists. We have too few screens now. And let's say we're on the very top of the QRH. So pilot flying says state malfunction. The pilot monitoring responds, okay, I think we have high engine vibration, so we have to call the correct checklist. And of course it's not going to be in the light, it's going to be an unenunciated index. So let's go here, or alphabetical if you don't know, or you can go straight into section 7 engines if you know that it's going to be associated with the engine somehow. But let's say you don't know. And once you are in the QRH, in the unenunciated page, you can find, you have engine failure, engine high oil temperature, engine in-flight start, engine limit, engine something. But we need to go to vibration. We don't have any vibration. For some reason, Boeing decided that it's going to have high engine vibration. It's going to call it like this, high engine vibration, not engine high vibration, so it's under E. But maybe as not native speaker, I don't understand something. So it's 7.28. So we go to section 7. Normally you're gonna click on that one and it should move me to 7 to 8. We go to section 7 and I'm gonna find the page number 28. High engine vibration. Again, condition, the vibration level is more than 4 units. FM vibration might be not felt. It would be, probably, but it might not be felt. If we're flying through turbulence or something, we might not feel that. Choose one. In icing conditions, not in icing conditions. So, what we're going to do, we're going to look out the window and say, okay, it's not in icing conditions for me. So not in icing conditions. Go to step 6. Auto relative engaged, disengaged. That's going to be pilot flying because it's his area of responsibility. So disengaged. Thrust lever, affected engine confirm, retard. But there is a word confirm. Every single time there's confirm in the checklist, it's crucial that both pilots will confirm that's this particular part to be switched off or closed. So pilot monitoring gonna read thrust lever, affected engine confirm. Pilot flying will say engine number 2 I confirm, close or retard to maintain vibration level 4 units or less. And the pilot flying will close this thrust lever or retard until it's fully closed. Note, if the vibration indication does not decrease, Check all the engine indications and run the engine at reduced thrust. So we can check all the indications and we might continue flying if we decide to. End of checklist. Sometimes Boeing is saying plan to land the nearest suitable airport. Then we are obliged to land at the nearest suitable airport. If not, we might decide to continue flight. Sometimes it's gonna be like, 95% is gonna be high vibration, but 85 is gonna be fine. And then I would consider continuing the flight. That's nice and easy. Hopefully. Okay, let's clear that one. The last one I want to show you is the memory items. So something that will require quite quick action. But always, even if we have, fire or something, always we fly the airplane first. As we talked before, it doesn't make any sense if you fight APU fire and then you crash into the terrain or something. So obviously fly the airplane first. APU fire, active, yes. Fire warning, APU fire. Cancel the warning because we don't want to sound it like, air crash investigation or something. It's not National Geographic. It's we don't need that. APU fire, memory items, non-normal checklist. APU fire switch confirm, affirm, pull, rotate to stop, hold for 1 second, confirm bottle discharge. Second step, APU switch off. APU fire, memory items completed, and then we transfer to control. We go to the checklist. So we go back to the QRH and let's go here. APU fire, quick action index 8.1, nice and easy. Fire protection 8.1, so it's going to be first page after condition. Fire is detected in the APU. APU fire switch confirm pull, rotate to stop hold for 1 second, APU switch off. This dashed line means memory items completed, and we say memory items completed. Choose one. APU fire switch extinguishes, APU fire switch stays illuminated. We go to a plane, we check what happens, and it's extinguished, both panels confirmed. So go to, APU fire switch extinguishes, all squares, end of checklist. Nice and easy. Quite straightforward. If not, we have plan to land at the nearest suitable airport, as I told before, and then we have to land at the nearest suitable airport. And that's kind of an open space because what is the nearest suitable airport? It's kind of commander discretion. But again, choose one. APU fire switch extinguishes, end of checklist. But I had an APU fire myself personally. I wouldn't be happy to continue the flight for 4 more hours, especially that the bottle has already discharged and I don't have any spare bottle for the APU. So even though that is not saying plan to land in nearest to the airport, I would consider landing somewhere en route. I will cancel this so we don't get any more master cautions. So this malfunction is cleared. Good. The other thing is prioritization. So sometimes we have multiple failures, but Boeing does not say which failure should be dealt first with. For example, if we have generator failure, it's going to be quite straightforward. Not options, but aircraft failures. Electrical program generator to failure, yes. As you see, we have a master caution ELEC, we understand that, and we have source off. Nice and easy, one light. So we just find the source off and we go continue with the checklist, carry on and finish that one. I cancel that one, but if we have drive disconnect, for instance, yes, it would cause two amber lights, source off and drive. We have to decide which one to do first. Of course, generator is lost, but if we have drive disconnect, I would go with that one first, because this one is probable cause of that one. It might not be, but it usually is, so we use the common sense in our system knowledge. Additionally, if we lose the engine, let's say, let's go to engines, programmed engine severe damage, for instance, or maybe not, flame out, let's say, let's going to go to engine number 1, flame out, yeah, let's make it just regular flame out active. So it is shutting down. We have an engine failure like master caution ELEC. So as I told you before, the engine failures doesn't really turn off the master caution. So the ELEC has turned off the master caution. So we have some lights. We have drive, we have source off, and we have engine failure. So now we have multiple failures, and of course we have to recognize what's the problem. In this case, that's the engine failure. Sometimes you might have, I don't know, some other MEL or something. Let's say that electric pump didn't operate before because it was inoperative, and it's good to dispatch without that pump. And since you had this failure, additionally you get loss of system B. So we have 2 non-normal checklists to be done, plus electric, which doesn't mean doesn't take us anywhere. But beside of having engine failure, I will deal with that in that way that first of all, of course, I would fly the airplane, do the engine failure shutdown checklist, flight controls, then deal with that one with the low pressure, and then consider generator, because one of the checklists will start the EPU and this will go off. It won't be any problem for us. And then we have field differential pressure and low pressure. So we have multiple lights, and we have to decide as per pilots, as captains, which are the most important, and we have to prioritize, because Boeing does not provide any guidance how to deal with multiple failures, or it doesn't say how does it affect each of which. So we can get into this situation simply by having engine failure with MEL, let's say electric pump. So we would go to loss of hydraulic system B, which is hydraulic, of course, after finishing the all engine associated stuff, but loss of system B, it's kind of again quite important, because we will have to extend landing gear manually. Fuel hydraulics, loss of system B 13.5. Oh, sorry, yes. We're gonna extend flaps, not landing gear. That's system A. I'm sorry, that's my bad. So, except the engine failure, we're gonna have to extend manually the flaps. That's another problem that Boeing doesn't provide guidance with. Okay, let's clear that one. I want to show you one last thing. Programmed engine, fly mode, engine number 2, active no. So it seems that I might just start that engine. Let's use the crossplay technique. So while this engine is gonna be starting, is it starting? It does. So we have to talk that some failures are quite discrete and they might not give you any warnings or any conditions unless you get any other malfunction. Don't think it's gonna start, but we'll see. Let's finish off that first. Does it give it fuel flow? Oh, it does. Bravo. So another thing, for instance, from the discrete failures we can encounter, of course it might be a lot of them, a lot of different ones, like let's say isolation valve active. Yes, so the isolation valve is stuck in the position it was before. As you see, it's open, so if I wanted to isolate this side, it stays open, it doesn't give you any light, only the pressure difference in the gauge doesn't change. So some checklists like engine failure might lead you, or smoke, fire fumes might lead you to closing the isolation valve, and it will not close. So some failures are very, very discrete, and you have to use your aircraft knowledge to see it. Now I reset that, so it has closed the duct. Good. Going back to the PDF, we talked about use of the non-normal checklist, general checklist flow, emergency, normal, non-normal. So we always use emergency checklist like engine fire, then normal, so after takeoff in case of V1, and then non-normal like drive generator, etc., etc. We're gonna talk about that in specific chapters. Okay, going on, may we do some checklists from the memory, even if it's not memory items? The answer is yes, if we are completely sure that that's the correct way of doing the checklist. For instance, when the fuel ends up in the center pump, center tank, we're gonna have low pressure here. We don't go to the checklist, we just switch off the pumps. Same with the off-schedule descent, we just lower the altitude in the flight altitude window. So we might do it from memory. If we're not sure, we're gonna have to use the checklist. Nice and straightforward, I think, I hope. Good. So talking about the QRH, going back to QRH, we went through the non-normal checklist. And the next page is operational information. That's the next chapter. In here, we have only one introduction, but this chapter is meant for the operators for the specific airlines to put whatever they want to put in here, like landing configuration or stabilization criteria or Talpa matrix for landing on the contaminated runways, etc., etc. This one is blank. It has only the section is reserved for operator developed information. Next, performance in flight. This one is for specific tabulation numbers, and again this one is for 700, 800, without winglets, with winglets, etc., etc. So it's quite complicated, but usually the QRH itself wouldn't be so complicated like that one. And if you move to the section itself, you can find information like flight with vulnerable airspeed, max climb in 1, current in 1, VREF, and all this information that you might need in some cases, or for instance like those ones you're gonna need in case of any FMC failure that you can depart without. Landing distances, engine operative, so we have all the performances with one engine. Gear down performance, you can check the fuel required for gear down flight, and then some advisory information, etc, etc, if needed. Let's go, for instance, to gear down, long range cruise, and that's kind of, you know, complicated tables that usually are in our iPads, but we might need to do it manually, especially that Boeing 737 doesn't provide the information of gear down flight. Let's say we're weighting 60 tons, we're flying at 3,000 feet. We're gonna have N1 of 87.4, maintaining this speed, this IAS, and we're gonna be burning 1,661 kilograms per hour per engine. It's not gonna talk through that one, it's a waste of time for us, but I highly recommend to go download the QRH and just take a look what's in there in performance in flight section. Next one, maneuvers. This is quite useful part. We will have non-normal maneuvers and normal maneuvers such as takeoff or landings, etc, etc. But we have to remember that for us, if something is the SOP is higher than the normal flight patterns from the QRH. Non-normal maneuvers, we're gonna talk about every single of that in separate chapters, separate episodes. Approach to stall and absolute recovery is gonna be next one. Ground proximity warning system, so terrain escape maneuver, wind shear escape maneuver, and rejected takeoff. And flight patterns, as I told you, just normal regular patterns, and they are all written with roles, so pilot flying, pilot monitoring, same for absolute recovery. And flight patterns additionally have these little graphs that you might go through to familiarize yourself with Boeing procedures, but those might not necessarily be compliant with the regulatory CAA, for instance EASA or some other US CAA or something. Probably it's with US because it's US certified airplane. Okay, next is checklist instructions. I mostly told you how to use the checklist, but if you're not sure, you might find everything here. Normal checklist, non-normal checklist. Then I have some airline specific procedures that are entered by the owner of the QRH. And the back cover is evacuation always. So the back cover looks like this. Front cover, I told you, it's the quick action index, it's this one. And the back cover is evacuation. So in case of evacuation, we're gonna use this checklist, evacuation, condition, evacuation is needed, and that's the point to stop and think about it. Yeah, so we just don't say like, okay, let's evacuate after engine fire or something, because we have to remember that in case of evacuation, some people might sustain injuries as well. So we always have to evaluate if it's needed or not. Evacuation is needed, and we're gonna read. First officer is going to read it always, because first officer is always pilot flying on the ground and we cannot evacuate in flight, hopefully. Parking brake set, and there's a little C saying captain. So FO is reading parking brake set, captain setting parking brake saying set. Speed lever down, captain. Again, he's putting down, saying down. Flap lever 40, FO is going to 40, saying 40. and etc, etc, etc. Then we go to advise the cabin to evacuate, which is doing by the captain with airline specific call out, and advise the tower, which is done by the FO. Good advice: when you're advising the tower, you should tell them that we are evacuating and specify the position. So we are evacuating on stand this and this, or on the runway, a beam, taxiway Charlie, whatever, just to let them know where specifically you are, especially in case of low visibility procedures. And again, end of checklist 4 squares, and then we take the documents and we evacuate ourselves. So that's the QRH itself, and now let's move on to the paper version of it. So guys, as I promised to you, that's the physical copy of Boeing 737 QRH. That's not the modern one, that's the one coming back from, I believe, 2000. It's actually 2000, August 30th, 2000. There are some differences, but I want to show you the main look of the QRH. Boeing was quite an interesting fact that Boeing in early 2000 has changed the philosophy of flying 737, as many other airplanes of Boeing. I will leave you the link about this change, which is quite interesting. I found it quite interesting myself as well. And they changed the QRH as well, but the general layout is more or less the same. The front page, 737 Quick Reference Handbook, and the modern one you would find Quick Reference Handbook, and after that, so on the first page we will find Quick Action Index. Likewise, at the back page, at the back cover, you'll find the evacuation checklist as I have shown you during the first part of the video. The book itself, it's quite large, as you see. The newer ones are they're even bigger, like twice the size of that, plus the operation information, which is added by the operator. And it's the big binder. It's this kind of binder that is easily openable by anyone, so you can just unattach it in a place. That's because it's changing quite a lot, so you can open it easily in order to allow pilots to change the pages. So you come back in the morning, take room, say, getting the letter like, listen guys, change this and these pages, and the previous ones please bring back to the office for confirmation or something. So we change the pages, we close it, and it's valid, and we can fly with it further. Moving forward, so as you see, we don't have the quick action index, and neither we don't have the index itself. So basically we're moving straight into the normal checklist. In modern QRH, which I cannot find because I cannot show you a physical copy of the company QRH or any existing company, and I couldn't just get one. So I'm gonna show you that one. So you would have the index, the light index, uninitiated index, alphabetical index, and then we move to normal checklist. What I did find interesting that the philosophy of Boeing has changed a lot, and the checklist itself changed as well quite a lot. So before start checklist is super long. It's taking just the entire page, and you're checking points like papers aboard, which maybe doesn't make sense, it's too much, but it's very general, it doesn't say anything specific. Nowadays all the points are specific. Some of the points are the same, some of the points are different, but general idea has changed a lot. So we don't have pre-flight checklists, we have before start, cleared for start, after start, before takeoff, cleared for takeoff, after takeoff, descent, approach, landing, and shutdown and secure checklist at the very end. You probably can pause the video and just take a look yourself. You can find the checklist yourself, the model ones, and compare if you want. From the interesting stuff, let's say you don't have before taxi, we have after start, which will consist of the items more or less the same of before taxi checklist, with the difference that before takeoff checklist in the model 737 will go flaps and stop trim. And here you have a lot of items, then you have cleared for takeoff and you check flaps in here. Instead of checking the flaps on before taxi checklist, you check flaps during taxi before takeoff. Then after takeoff checklist, which is pretty much the same, it's the only checklist that is the same as the model one. Descent approach checklist, nowadays we have descent and then separate approach checklist. Here is combined into the one, and approach checklist is just saying altimeters set. Some of you might know that Ryanair is quite famous from its checklist from the different approach to flying a 737, and in Ryanair you can find that approach checklist will consist of these 2 points: altimeter instrument set and cross check, and one IS box checked and set. So a lot of pilots flying actually for Ryanair, they think, or they sometimes wonder why the approach checklist is so complicated. So in Ryanair the approach checklist is just coming from the old Boeing times before they changed the philosophy, and it makes sense for me. If it works for them, it makes sense, I suppose. It's the same with landing checklist. Modern planes have only 4 items. The recall item has been removed, except again in Ryanair they have the recall item, which just stayed this old Boeing checklist. Moving on, shutdown, I'm not going to discuss that, you can pause the video and see it yourself. The layout itself is a bit different. You have checklist introduction, which is basically checklist instruction chapter to the model checklist. Usually it will be in the back. Then you have performance in flight. Some stuff has been added to the model one. And then we move on to non-normal checklist. And as you see, we are missing operational information pages. Talking about the QRH, as you see, I told you it's nice and easy to navigate around the QRH. So if you want to move to performance in flight, you just grab the tab here and you get to performance in flight. Talking about the non-normal checklist, as we don't have index, like in the modern one, you have the front one. Here you don't have it. It used to be like that, but you had to move to the first page, identify the area you are interested in. For instance, I don't know, engines. Grab the 7, as the top 7 is saying engines, and then find the checklist you are looking for. The layouts of the checklist itself is a bit different, so we're not going to discuss it a lot, but just interesting stuff that memory items has been distinguished in this kind of black squares or rectangles or something, and it doesn't have this black squares at the end saying end of checklist like you saw in the first part of the video. And of course some items are different. There are less choices, like nowadays you can say select one of those, and if it's closed, if it's open or something. Here is basically a checklist without many choices. Sometimes I found some choices here, but not too many of them. So I suppose that's it, and of course some checklist has been added as Boeing's encountered more and more malfunctions or different malfunctions. They started to add checklists like volcanic ash or ice crystal icing, or as we discussed, the electrical fire coming up from the iPods. Of course it might happen, it couldn't happen in 2000s. Nowadays it's kind of a big threat. So that's the QRH itself. Thank you for watching. Leave me a like, leave a subscribe, and I see you in the next episode. Thank you very much and fly safe, guys. Bye bye.